Great. So really high level slide, just in case anyone, is outside of the contact center like space about what who Genesys is. So they're formed in 1990. They're definitely one of the oldest kind of active players in the contact center space with kind of two primary contact center solution offerings right now, which would be the Genesys Cloud, which was formerly known as Pure Cloud from Interactive Intelligence, as well as the Genesys Engage on-premise solution. So the Genesys Engage solution, and here I've just kind of got a couple of their icons just to see the difference, but you'll see in their marketing, the Genesys Engage solution is a highly complex, very sophisticated, like 1,000+ contact center offering, known for very complex implementation, being just kind of a powerhouse under the hood in terms of setup. So you can really configure this to your heart's content in terms of routing objects and routing work to agents through the Genesys Engage environment. It is an on-premise solution, so that's really its big kind of differentiator. Is it's definitely inheriting, it's been around for a very long time. It's hosted in a data center on a local server across multiple servers, usually in that like 10 to 20 server range to host a Genesys Engage environment. So feel free, you can Google it and look at the different architecture diagrams and see how complex a Genesys Engage environment is. And then today, really, they're more like small mid-range, as well as scaling into those larger markets has been the Genesys Cloud offering, which was originally Interactive Intelligence Pure Cloud, which is very similar in flavor to Amazon Connect and other cloud contact center offerings being hosted in Amazon Web Services and provisioned through a simple kind of web portal interface. So going through just kind of a perspective from my perspective coming from Genesys and working closely with the team there in terms of how I see Genesys handling like customer interaction. And also I just want to pause and say if anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt at any time. I want to keep it's being a pretty flexible session. But in terms of the way that the Genesys kind of orchestrates is Genesys kind of at the center of any of your customer interactions, driving through the Genesys routing engine. So the idea being that all interactions are feeding through, so leveraging data from multiple sources to drive complex customer interactions and housing all that contact center data within Genesys. So you kind of have this separate entity that orchestrates the customer experience. So a lot of the like common themes that I heard, at my time at Genesys is things like, owning all the channels. I want to own all the channels so that I can be the routing engine to make these decisions, which is totally a different, which to me, I mean, that's our goal as well, but it's a separate entity from your CRM solution, which looking at legacy systems and looking at how things were kind of handled historically, the CRM didn't have the kind of advanced logic or advanced rules in it to handle routing work. And that was where the need for a Genesys platform kind of came up, was I need a way to distribute different things based off of data. So now that we have, omni-channel within Salesforce and now the voice capabilities, really we're delivering it all under one, pane of glass, and Salesforce acts to both drive that customer interaction as well as house the customer information, offering a much more unified experience with minimal configuration. So any of the integrations that we talk about when housing contact center data and leveraging data from multiple sources usually means a separate integration path that is long-term, subject to failure or subject to risk outside of housing that information in one place. So I've went through some of the key features, or I'm going to go through some of the key features within Service Cloud Voice and where I see the benefits. So number one being the embedded call controls within omnichannel. So typically when you have a Genesys or another CTI adapter, it's going to be a separate window on the omnichannel or on your Service Console bar there. So within omnichannel and Service Cloud Voice, it's all embedded in one window, making a unified agent experience as opposed to having a separate CTI adapter for whatever channels are running through Genesys. So if they had phone and email in Genesys, but chat, they'd have to manage two different windows and do some type of syncing operation to manage that status and user experience. Oh, and I'm so sorry. I saw there were a couple questions there. But yes, you are correct that Genesys will fully containerize Engage in the next 12 months. So that makes sense. Um, Perfect. So moving forward here, the native call playback functionality. So the embedded call audio player is something that is available out of the box with Service Cloud Voice compared to, building an integration or building that into the record itself through like an addition, at least from my history with the Genesys cloud experience. You can do things like this, but it's going to require building out a separate integration or building out separate functionality there. And the same thing kind of goes with the real-time transcription. This isn't an out-of-the-box feature that's incorporated directly into Salesforce. So the last thing, in terms of call routing features, there's native connectivity for call routing within Service Cloud Voice that's pre-set up within within Lambda to do things like data dips and determine routing information to send calls to the correct agent. That's built into just the default voice setup experience of Service Cloud Voice. So when you set up Service Cloud Voice, you're getting the ability to route calls to specific agents using Salesforce data, and there's no extensive like integration or no additional like add-ons you need to do. So upon provisioning, you already get access to those features without additional configuration. And the same kind of recurring theme with the analytics piece. So I just put together a quick slide in terms of the value comparing Genesys Cloud to Service Cloud Voice and what's available out of the box. I think that the main recurring theme and main thing I wanted to kind of talk to on this presentation was just that everything's out of the box. It's a very tight-knit circle in terms of Service Cloud Voice having advanced call routing features available without any additional configuration, having the ability to accept calls within omnichannel and have playback within Salesforce without having to, add on or build out additional features. But I did want to leave some additional time here. I know I kind of went through that quickly, but I was expecting some time for questions or, kind of further discussion from there.
So, hey, this is Steve. Thanks for this. I guess, I think Ben and Ian and stuff for Salesforce are on the call. So you got a bunch of SEs on the pillar team for Service Cloud Voice. One of the challenges that I face in the market as I talk to customers who have Genesys is this migration to the cloud for the Pure Engage platform and the lack of ability to accept work from Salesforce to route through their omni-channel routing stack, which of course Amazon, we talk about that here. That to me is the biggest overlapping competing area that I see and have, or at least that I've seen. And that frequently then goes into losing, having discussions about who should own the actual plumbing of the digital channel that needs to get routed. And then it gets in and it further undercuts us in terms of the desktop experience. So what's your point of view on that? And how we can navigate this and uncover the impacts that we know are out there for the business, but we may be deep in a conversation and it's not clear. It becomes more of a biblical discussion when in fact there is an impact to not necessarily having this routing all on one platform.
Yeah. So the main thing that's always my primary concern with, at least what I've seen, would be your email inbox or whatever. If you're using like email, for example, connecting directly to Genesys, and then Genesys trying to send some kind of like post information if you did want that information to get sent to a CRM solution. But for me, the main gain is that without having to take like a separate integration path or like hooking the email directly into Salesforce so that all that information is stored in Salesforce, and we happen to be routing that as well, as opposed to trying to route the information. And then if for some reason we needed that historic customer information, it getting stored and sent from Genesys, which creates like its own separate thread
super quick too.
of communication. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I've been in some deep conversations with these guys in parallel with joint customers, and that it's at a technical level. I think my point is that we need to get this at a business level and an impact to the business, to say that in order for you to do an email to case in Salesforce, you got to do a bunch of stuff in Genesys with all the threading and all the things that go behind that. And it's a lot of work, puts a lot of onus on the folks implementing Genesys.
Are we going to do anything for your little board members?
Getting a lot of background. I don't know if it's me or somebody else, but at the same time, it takes information out of the customer 360. It forces them then to have a separate effort to put the information back into Salesforce, so we get the full customer 360, the full interaction history, so that we're not going back and forth. And to me, that's really where we struggle with Genesys. And generally, if a customer is sophisticated and say, I want my routing all from Genesys,
in the morning,
that really puts us in a hard spot.
Yeah, and I would say that, I mean, I feel like a lot of the Genesys customer base has been using a long time, and it took a ton of effort to get it configured. So getting them kind of out of that circle of,
it'd be nice for him to come. Maybe he would come. I don't know.
Sorry, I just have a little bit of background noise, but
I think everyone else would.
Anyway, so I would say that the challenge of getting the information like uploaded correctly to, like, I guess for me, all that spells out risk, and that's the way that I always kind of have positioned or seen it, is like, if we have Genesys uploading this information, I had a lot of customers facing issues where the information's not getting there correctly, and due to that, it's creating issues in your CRM solution and downstream data, because none of that information is appropriate to make actions on, right? So and I guess from your perspective, the challenge isn't even getting them off of the channel. It's like, I can't get them off of Genesys because they're so deeply integrated. They don't feel that the information can be routed correctly. Is that more your perspective? And I'm sorry, I might have lost my audio. I don't.
Steve, I don't know if you muted yourself.
Yeah, but I guess to summarize, my primary concern is if it's a matter that they don't want to, remove their channels from Genesys, I'm not exactly sure how this discussion, I guess, fits in. But if it's a matter of trying to decide between using that channel in Genesys or using it in Service Cloud via omnichannel, to me, the major benefit is that all that information is stored natively within Salesforce using our built-in actions and built-in functionality, so that there's no longer this integration point that you're heavily reliant upon working with Genesys to make sure it's both functioning correctly and maintainable. It's part of that base Service Cloud.
Yeah, I think the competitive challenge for us here is the fact that there is this conceptual, actual thing of that I want all my work routed from one place. And yes, we lose the benefits of everything you just said if we're forced to route all work through one place, and that's the Genesys stack. And that's really where our real pain points is in competing with Genesys, is that we end up talking to folks who've been working with Genesys for 20 years, and they don't get it. They don't get the fact that, hey, I might have to add another headcount to my workforce management team to manage the stuff in Salesforce that isn't managed in Genesys, but I will get some significant value to my business in terms of a beautiful customer experience. But if I'm forced to go down shoving everything through Genesys, that beautiful customer experience starts to collapse like a house of cards, because in order to do that, we have to use Genesys's digital channels. We have to use their workflow. We lose all of that inherent data that's built into Salesforce in the customer 360 and the ability to to write processes off of that. That to me is really where we have, from a selling perspective, the biggest friction in competing with Genesys. And it's, well, we're successful with customers who understand, hey, we want to get off of Genesys because it's too complex or it costs too much money, and we're willing to give some of this up for that. That's kind of what I'm saying.
No, and that makes sense. And at least at my time at Genesys, it often came down to a lot of the key decision makers being heavily invested in Genesys, like you were saying, and saying, well, we've got all the routing and those kinds of things pre-configured, like we've been feeding it through Genesys for years. And then they sometimes are like threatened, like if we get rid of Genesys, where's my seat at the table? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that frequently came up to a point where deals were being won because the key decision makers managed the Genesys system, and they did not. They didn't want to like lose their job and go, well, now the Salesforce team handles the voice side. So I definitely, that's a little bit more of like a political problem. I don't offhand have a great suggestion.
No, I know, and I don't expect you to. And I don't mean to put. I just want to be clear in terms of what we, at least what I'm seeing. I can't speak for Andre, Doug, Ian, Josh, but I think those are real concerns, and the real challenge for us is not the Amazon Connect and what you guys do at NeuroFlash now. It's going to be the BYOT and what solutions come in there, because I think that's going to be where we're going to find the most opportunity to shift mindsets. Yeah. So anyway, listen, I'm sorry, I have to drop.
No.
But I appreciate this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Hey, this is Ben Gus speaking. So I only left Genesys in June this year, so I'm fairly current. And I was working with them for nearly 20 years, both with Genesys directly and with their former parent company, Alcatel-Lucent. Yeah. And I just like to comment that, a couple of things here that, firstly, if anyone needs any help understanding Genesys, please feel free to reach out to me. I've been doing this a number of times with different accounts, so I'm happy to help where I can. Secondly, I think you have to be careful with your strategy when you go into a customer, depending on whether you're talking about someone who has legacy Genesys Engage or whether it's a Genesys Cloud opportunity, because the value propositions are very different. Genesys Cloud is very comparable to Amazon Connect. And I think that the differentiators that we have as Salesforce are more aligned to what we do with the broader platform rather than going toe-to-toe on a contact center feature list. I don't see that as being terribly successful strategy. I'm looking at the slide that you have on the screen here now, and frankly, quite a few of these points, like embedded call controls, accepts call, and omnichannel, they really come down to user interface preference, in my opinion. Because yes, okay, you have the open CTI interface, you have embedded call controls in there with Genesys, you have an omni-channel experience with Genesys, you can play back calls. Yes, okay, it's just about UI. And so trying to really say that that's a massive, value differentiator, I think that's a pretty tough argument to have with a lot of customers, because you're really espousing the same thing at this point. Yes, you can control your call. Okay, am I doing it in this window or that window? Does it really make a huge difference in terms of capability? Not much. But when you start talking about the ability of Service Cloud Voice to much more tightly integrate into Salesforce objects, the case, Einstein Analytics, next best action, all of those things is where you start to really, I think, differentiate. So you have to take the conversation, in my point of view, away from being, contact center toe to toe and move it more into the end-to-end proposition of solving this customer's support issue or sales issue, whatever it is the reason is that they're calling for. I think, to me, that's a much more interesting conversation to have with the customer, as opposed to saying, well, we have an IVR and they have an IVR, and in our solution you click here and in their solution you click there. Kind of a bit, it doesn't really kind of do it for me. So for that reason, I like the kind of lower 3 points on your slide here, as opposed to the kind of, the top three.
Agree. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. The other thing I would say, so again, with Genesys Engage, I mean, I kind of put a comment there in the chat, but just to kind of be clear, so it is absolutely available as a cloud platform, not just on premise. I know you probably know that, Nathan, but just to be clear for everyone else, because it was in your slide that said, premise only, that's just, it's been available as a cloud solution for more than 5 years now. It is more of a, it's not a built for the cloud solution like Genesys Cloud is. So there is an argument to have there, but they are in the process of completely re-architecting Engage so that it really is built for the cloud with that containerization option. And then, for a lot of customers, that ability to run it in their own cloud, a private cloud, or, cloud of their choice, whether it be GCP, AWS, Azure, whatever it is again, quite a compelling argument that we obviously can't make with Connect because it's only available on Amazon. And, there are certain clients out there that will, if you're in retail, try and sell a solution that runs on AWS to Walmart. I mean, no chance. So, so there are, stumbling blocks that we have to get over there as well from a competitive standpoint. But I mean, so really that's all I wanted to say is that just please, if anyone has any questions, I'm available here at Salesforce to help if I can. And yeah, but really good information. Thank you, Nathan.
No problem. Were there any other questions or comments? I think we've still got about 4 minutes here. Perfect. Then I will. I'll let everyone go a few minutes early, but thanks everyone for your time today, and appreciate all the feedback.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.